I'm Terry Gadsden. This is Pen Densham, our guest. Um, Penn and I have known each other since 1968. Penn's currently in Los Angeles. I'm currently in Miramichi. So, just to give you a brief introduction to Penn, here are some of the people that Penn's career has been a variety of things, from camera to well, everything, every step of the way. Um, but in his capacity as producer, writer, and/or director, Penn's worked with some pretty impressive people. Worked directly with him. That would be some of the people are Sean Connery, Morgan Freeman, twice I believe, Jeff Bridges, Ron Howard, Robin Wright, Robert De Niro, Tommy Lee Jones, Kevin Costner, Sylvester Stallone, uh, Bill Murray, Hans Zimmer, William Baldwin, Kurt Russell, Danny Glover, Ed Harris, and we could go on for the next half hour just to let you understand that Penn has toiled in the big places. So Penn, uh, we first met in '68. Now, you came over originally from London, I think.
Right. Well, I grew up in a family of filmmakers. My mother and father were making short films for the movie theaters. I was a little kid. I don't think they could afford babysitters. They dragged me along. And I fell in love with cameras, storytelling. The magic of putting up a camera seemed to attract audiences of people that wanted to guess what you were doing. When you go to a movie theater and you see this enormous image, and they put me on an alligator in one of their movies when I was 4. And I was convinced my mother couldn't have been there that day, because who'd do that? And it was like a 7-foot alligator. And I literally was sent a copy of the movie that my parents made this year by a professor who'd found a 60 mil print of it. And there I am amongst all the other different strange pets. It was a movie about people who kept strange pets. And there was like an 8-second cut of my mother who had died when I was 8. And so that was the first time I'd seen her living in all that time. And again, that just adds to the magic of film. Went to a normal English high school, was terrible at math, terrible at anything other than wanting to take photographs or read books, and left at 15, tried to start my own film companies in England. There's no way. Photographed the Rolling Stones, but for the BBC, and then fled to Canada at 19, thinking I was a washed up failure, and discovered a country where people give you money to make movies. You could get a grant. You could put together a team of young other filmmakers like you. The rental companies would give you the cameras, something you promised to pay when you got some money. And we worked for Terry and I worked for a couple of sweatshops, sort of like Victorian filmmaking companies where, you know, they were extracting painfully work out of us, and decided that it's got to be something better. And started making short films and found the CBC would buy them. And we were borrowing cameras, having people put the film through the labs at night quietly for us for free. You know, it was sort of like guerrilla filmmaking. And the CBC would paid us $1,000 for a $100 movie that Terry played the music for and I directed and filmed. And decided that 22, I'd start my own film company with some of my friends. And so we started making shorts. And it was the cumulative process of learning on each short. Why was the NFB selling its shorts? Why weren't we? And then we realized that you had to win awards. And if you don't enter, you don't win awards. So, you know, winning awards somehow gave a good housekeeping seal of why your films would be looked at, and learned that you had to market as much as you had to make great films. And then what's a feature film? It's a bunch of scenes, like a lot of your short movies all put together. So I don't really take myself all that seriously. Yeah, I've worked with all those people, but you know, my attitude is if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's just a series of good accidents and not quitting. You know.
Well, what Can you tell us what got you to Hollywood from Toronto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It, um, I left school at 15, terrified that I wasn't any good at anything. I was didn't have the courage to write. I would photograph things, but when we started making our own films, we made documentaries. We tried to make them as visually experiential as possible. But I was scared to write. And then a friend of mine, which goes to show you about networking, and we hung out with the people at the Filmmakers Co-op in Toronto at that time. We had a network of our own young filmmakers. And one of the guys, Paul Saltzman, phoned me up, and I'm still great friends with Paul, and said, did you know the CBC's got this show called Sprockets with Julius Kohani and Barry Pearson, and they'll give 10 grand to any filmmaker that comes up with a story idea that they want to make. And I thought, oh my God, this could be my only chance. I'm going to have to write a screenplay. And I didn't know how to write one, but I had made a number of films with my partner about thoroughbred horses because he loved those. I know I could motivate him to go out with me and shoot movies if we could do it about something he loved, and he loved horses. And I decided I would write a script, and I didn't really know, but I had this vision that there's this thing that happens where if a mare is giving birth and it's breech birthed, you have essentially 20 minutes to turn the foal in the uterus or choose which one will die. And I used that as the background to a story about a broken down old trainer who had a horse in foal, that he loved the horse and it was having problems. And the day that that horse is giving birth and brings in the vet that he's never met before, who's the standby, and the conflicts between the two of them as they try and save the animal. And shot it with an old documentary crew, thought I was the world's worst filmmaker. Literally was trying to invent how to edit films because my partner cut all the pauses out because we're used to making sports documentaries where energy was everything. And the film was the worst fucking awful mess. And I wanted to kill myself. And I thought I'd let everybody down. So I sat with my partner and he was given more awards for his editing than any other editor in Canada at that time. And I said, well, what happened before the guy said the line? And he'd go to the trim bin, which is you guys are so lucky not to have to do. And then he'd take the sticky tape off and he'd put in the piece. And you look at it and it looks like the guy's thinking. And you go, well, what happens if what happens if the other guy in the room looks at him? And so I thought I was doctoring this awful failure that I had. And by the time we finished it, it was reviewed as the best movie of any length ever shown on television in Canada. No, you guys are crazy. Oh no, it's a piece of shit. I don't know what I'm doing. I just managed to fool you. And Norman Jewison phones up and says, hey, I've seen your movie. Would you like to go to Hollywood? And I'm going, no, but my brain says, no, this is it, man. You got to take the chance. I didn't know that was normal. That actually I have pretty good facility for story, but none of those things were clear to me. But I took the chance to go to Hollywood, and we had a company, and we had staff, and so ended up split because I now was learning from Jewison, which was scary on hell. Go on a set with all these people and all these sophisticates and thinking I'm the country bumpkin. And so anyway, but I wouldn't quit because my dream was to see where my life could go as a filmmaker. And without Norman making that, volunteering that, and the Telefilm paying for me to go, I would never have had the opportunity. And then Norman told me I couldn't go back to Canada. He said, there isn't a market at this time that can use your talent the way you are. And the film he was working on was Stallone, and right after Rocky. And Stallone kind of was easy to get along with because we were outsiders. I wasn't a Hollywood person, and I showed him some of our films, and he started asking us to consult on his movies. And so we were suddenly inside the Hollywood system, fixing Rocky II and given my own second unit to go play with and shooting, all the kinds of visually impressive, exciting things that I love to make with cameras. And then his editors couldn't figure out how to put them in. So we were put in charge of the editing. So that sort of diffused our fear of the Hollywood myth, that if we could figure out how to fix a Hollywood movie, then maybe we actually were okay, but we still didn't want to write. We were sure we shouldn't write. There were real people in Hollywood that could write. And then we got to hire some of them for projects the studios were supporting us on, and looked at their work and said, holy crow, we could write better than that, and realized that this myth was not real, that there is the same spectrum of good and bad and wonderful and absurd qualities in Hollywood, and sort of realized that you have to choose an ecosystem. And so I ended up staying here and regretting leaving Canada and losing contact with my family, friends, and it was tough. But it's been great. I've made films that I never would have made in Canada, but I maybe would have had a happier life sometimes in Canada.
Well, stress is always part and parcel of everything we do. By the way, for people, our viewers, Pen's movie is called, the horse movie is called If Wishes Were Horses. And if you can get a chance to see it, it stars Jackie Burroughs, who's a prominent Canadian actress at the time. By the way, if anyone has any questions, just jump in. We're going to try to make the most of this this time we have. So you're absolutely welcome to jump in. So once you got established and being associated with the you being associated with the Academy Award winner like Stallone, that didn't hurt, right?
No, it put me in, and John Watson, my partner, into the infrastructure at a level where people would listen to us. And then they brought us all the movies with problems to see if we could fix them. So we were involved in fixing, we were asked to help with Footloose. We were asked to help with Victory, which was John Huston's movie. And all we were doing is applying the things that we'd learned on our documentaries, because of trying to make them very dramatically experiential. We didn't rely on scripts, we relied on visuals to tell story. And that made us very strong in Hollywood, which is a very hyphenated world. The editors had to work for 6 years as an assistant before they could be an editor. And the editors were never producing movies. And we did it all in order to survive because we couldn't hire people. So, and the biggest thing was learning how to sell your movies, and not giving up on them, and constantly trying to figure out how to get funds, and begging from Noranda and the Jockey Club, and trying to just get any place. And that fear thing has never gone away. It's not like I'm super confident. I'm actually a coward. I actually have a full imagination about all the horrible things people say about my work, and I have to overcome it every time I go out. And my advice to people is that when I look backwards, I say my errors of omission, where I cowered it out, where I didn't make the effort because I was uncertain, have cost me emotionally a lot more than when I made the effort and made a fool of myself once in a while, because other times that making the effort caused me to learn how to go forward and achieve a goal that was personally, emotionally, and passionately something I wanted to do.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind jumping to Robin Hood. In that it reveals so much of the passion that drives you. Starting with the script, as I recall, Penn's movie Robin Hood starred Kevin Costner, Alan Rickman, and a character named Sean Connery, an actor. But first, I'd like to talk about how you wrote the script against the odds, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah.
And it comes back to life experience. Losing my mother when I was young gave me a sense that there's some kind of purpose to what I'm doing. Having a child with my wife, we had a son together, also let me look at life through a different filter. And this idea for doing Robin Hood came to me, and ideas are not like solid rock. They're ephemeral things, and you blow on the embers until they become something. And if you share them with the wrong people, they can step on them before they grow. But the concept I wanted to do was to make a film that essentially said that the makers of life, which is my term, the people that go out and defend others, need a film where their altruistic heroism is exhibited, because all we were seeing at that point was Stallone and Schwarzenegger mowing human beings down like they were bowling pins, as if that was heroic. And I call those the takers of life. And this vision of a Robin Hood where a Muslim and a Christian worked side by side, sharing the load of saving others, was something that really appealed to me. So I went out and pitched it to 3 studios, including Disney. And I got the same response, was, that's the stupidest idea we've ever heard. No one wants to see guys with swords. They want to see guys with guns. Don't bother us with that. John Watson, my partner, was not all that encouraging at that point. And I learned later that in some ways you have to sell people on your vision as much as you have to, actually create. But what saved me was that our assistant, who was the guy that typed for us, said, I think that's a really cool idea. If you decide to start typing it, writing it, I'll work with you. And his decision to say that is the only reason that Robin Hood exists. Because I then said, okay, and I sat down and started writing it, even though it was fully rejected. And John, as he started to read the pages, suddenly could see what was in my mind on the pages, and became a major supporter, and ended up collaborating on some of the screenplay elements, so that the film got much better. And then we put it out. John actually wanted to quit at one point, because now we'd heard there was a Robin Hood at Fox with John McTiernan, the guy that did Die Hard, was going to direct it. And now it seemed like a waste of time. And I'd given up on another script I was trying to write. And the pain of giving up, the pain of teaching myself that failure is acceptable, that you can kill your ideas, had really bothered me. And so I refused to let John not complete his part of the project. And then we polished the script, thinking it could be an absolute waste of time, but at least we had a finished project. And then people started reading it, telling us it was really cool. We're going, it is? So we ended up selling it on a bidding war. And we took the lowest price that we were offered it, because we wanted to stay connected to the movie. For us, the goal was to stay on it as producers. And Fox was offering us money. We were pretty sure they were going to kill the project. And Warner's was offering us a giant fee for the script. But we'd been told that Joel Silver would get the project, we'd be thrown off it. And so we went with this little company called Morgan Creek. And John moved into the offices at Morgan Creek and started every day politicking the people in the offices to keep making moves, and to hire Costner and to hire the director, who was a friend of mine at that time. And we managed to beat everybody out. And there became 4 Robin Hoods in Hollywood at that point, from when I couldn't get arrested with one to where we were beating, trying to race to the finish line with ours. Changed our lives. And we were very lucky. It was a giant hit.
Yeah. there's what I'm kind of looking at here are the overcoming the you can't do this, overcoming that attitude. And I think you're in the movie Robin Hood with Kevin Costner, at the very end of it, things are all getting sorted out, and Robin and Maid Marian are. Has anybody seen the movie? Has everybody seen the movie? You recall at the end, Robin and Maid Marian are looking as if they're going to get angry. As if they're going to get married. But who shows up but King Richard, who's been held ransom. And King Richard in his armor and chainmail turns around, and it's Sean Connery. And in the movie theaters, there was just a huge as he appeared, because Sean Connery, just like out of nowhere, he's not in the credits. And Pen's desire to get that particular actor and the story of how he got him is very inspiring to me. Uh, anyway, over to you, Penn.
All right. Well, I try never to speak badly of people. So let's just say that the director, who'd been a friend of mine, had a different vision for the movie than mine. And
Yes.
for a while was trying to make it into Monty Python's Robin Hood, kind of like his version of Men in Tights. And it was writing scenes and shooting things. And I heard that he wanted John Cleese to turn up at the end and play King Richard. And I thought, oh my God, if he does that, then the things I really cared about, the fact that the film involved a rich, snobby asshole who decided that he was better than his father's vision and went off to the wars and left his father to die and came back and wanted to get revenge, and then learns that he actually is willing to sacrifice himself for the future of his peasants' children. That journey was gone in terms of his heartfeltness and the jokes and things. And the sheriff was wildly extreme compared with what he is in the movie now. And I felt if Richard was played by John Cleese, it gave the film permission to go in that direction. And I was desperate, and I phoned up the head of CAA, and I'm not this good at that, but I said, please give us Sean Connery, because Sean, I know, had worked with Costner. I promise you this scene will be a piece of film history, but he can't have a credit. And we don't have any money in the budget for it. And I said, you can't have a credit because you can't have the audience waiting the whole movie to see Sean Connery turn up. So they read the script piece that I'd written for it, and they said, that's a great idea. We want $1 million for Sean. And I go, no, we don't have any budget left. We've blown our budget. We can't. And so it turned out that through negotiations, they ended up making a $250,000 donation to Sean's hospital in Scotland, and he worked for one day on the movie. And I believe that him being in the movie was like the compass for the entire heart of the movie. And I was also proven right that when he did turn up on screen, there was this warm moment, and it changed the direction of the film. The director had some wonderful contributions to the movie, but he was an eccentric gentleman, and he cut his film without showing it to us, didn't share the 10-week cut in any way, told the studio, which was Warner Brothers, the top studio at that point, they changed one frame of his film and he would quit the movie, thinking that he had some kind of power. And they screened the film. We did test screenings, and the audience had issues with certain areas that seemed obvious that they could be easily fixed. And the director, when he was asked to do that, quit the film. And John and I sort of looked at each other and said, oh dear, how will we make this work? And so having fixed and doctored lots of movies, we started working on Robin Hood with another guy who was also a great film doctor. And we turned the film back into the vision that we originally had for it, including I'd written a scene where Little John's wife gives birth, and the only person that could help him is Azim, the Muslim. And that had been the first scene the director hadn't wanted to shoot. And I had begged Kevin Costner to use his help, because he'd had kids, to get that scene shot. And it was not in the film. And I went to a meeting with the heads of the studio and the financing company. And I said, there's something wrong with this room. And they said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, 50% of humanity isn't here. It's all men. And there was a not a very tasteful, jokey, rapish kind of marriage thing going on at the end of the film. And there was also this scene that I really wanted to do, because it was a metaphor for my son being born. And it made me cry when I'd written it when I was working on the script. And they said, well, yeah, you cut it and we'll look at it. And everybody else is, you're wasting this time. This is you'll piss off the studio heads. But I cut it anyway, and I could only get it down to 4 minutes. And the theory was that the movie was already over length. Studios don't like long movies because you miss a cycle every day, you miss money. But we showed it in a screening room, and I remember the heads of the studio up ahead of me and they're watching this piece, and guys around me are all kind of like gritting their teeth because I put them in the shit. And then the heads of the studio turn around, having chatted with each other, and they say, you know, we trusted Doc Hollywood last week. That had a burst scene, and the audience loved it. Put it in. And I had won my movie. I'd won the heartfelt film, because Robin is fighting for the future of that child when he goes at the end of the film. And he's learning morals, and he's learning goodness as a result of it. And all that's under the surface. It's really a fun romp, but fun romp with a passion that I wanted to say something about. And I'm awfully proud of myself for not doing my error of omission and not shutting up when that opportunity to fight for something I believed in happened. And it, you know, sometimes you just got to take the shot and go for it. And passion, having a feeling, something that you've invested, drives you. And that's why I say to people, don't try and make, you know, clones of someone else's movie thinking that's what the world wants. They want your movie with all your passion in it. When I teach people about pitching, I say the first rule is passion. Demonstrate passion. Get excitement going for people, because if you're excited, they'll be excited. Whereas if you say, you know, horror movies are selling, and I don't normally do horror movies, but I know you can sell one, why would I be passionate for you? But if you say I've got this love story that's based on my parents and they found each other after 10 years of extraordinary experiences, they're going to go, oh yeah, what happened? Because it's infectious passion. But it also, if you do the things that you yearn to do, I say sometimes the stories tell you, and those pieces are growing your story muscles. They're increasing your strengths as a storyteller. And I say, write dangerously, right to the place that you're really scared that it's so different and unique, but it's coming out of your truth, out of your unconscious. Or you create the story in a documentary that is a unique way of seeing and a unique way of telling, because they can only get that through you. But as you do it, what you're doing is increasing your own ability to fight for more of your creativity to come out of you with a true voice of who you are. And no one is a replica of you. You know, we're each magically individual beings, and we're each in this world. And you guys are at the film co-op. You've got dreams. You're shaman. We're the people that are the mythology creators for our time, and we're antennas. And each of us is our own antenna, receiving our own family experiences, our zeitgeist, our DNA. And each of us has this opportunity to take this and express it. And it's a privilege. And it isn't easy. You know, making a movie is like going to war. That you solve a million problems to make a feature film, and at the end of it, there's a movie. But it's painful as fuck. But then you get the dream on the screen, and then you move on to the next one. You know, complaining and hating yourself again.
You know that you're talking about passion. I recall when you were writing had made Robin Hood, and Robin Hood turned out to be the highest grossing movie for that year. And I remember you saying, I got to go now because they're returning my phone calls now. And that was really something. But that passion that Pen is talking about, and the courage. Can you imagine? You're making a movie, and the heads of the studio, they could absolutely put you out of business forever. The courage to go against that. It's you really got to have your heart in there. And Pen wrote a book about I suppose it's ostensibly about the screenwriting, but it goes way below that, way more fundamental. It's called, I don't know if you can see, it's called Riding the Alligator. And it's different from other books in that it's not, you know, put a comma here and introduce this character there. It goes to the very heart of what will drive a story. In fact, you examine the very nature of story, right?
Yeah.
And
that comes from many different things. One is there was no books on screenwriting that I could understand. when I was starting out. Also, Terry and I had the privilege of working with Marshall McLuhan, who talked about the internal workings of a human being, why they watch movies, and what is the process that's going on, and what is this trance that people are in, and why are they moving their faces with the characters on the screen. And so I've had a fascination for evolutionary psychology, storytelling, all in the effort to try and make it easier to write. It's all laziness. The only reason I'm trying to figure this stuff out is that writing stories is hard work, and if I could get it to become less difficult, I would love it. But I also wanted to fight some of the dogma books, and I read these dogma books, and they says you got to have this by now, and you got to write in this structure, and you got to write. And I think, you assholes, I've written hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but I've written hundreds of stories, and they don't come out like that. You know, sometimes you get the ending, sometimes you get a beginning that's so freaking wonderful, you don't know what the rest of it is, and then you start plowing the fields trying to discover it. And to tell you that you should have the whole thing there like a gestalt is ruinous. It's horrible, it's cruelty. And so I wanted to write a book that said, screw all that. This is disgusting when people tell you these rules. Maybe those books are useful once you finish the script to do kind of like a checklist, but what is your process? What is the magic of what creativity comes out of you, and how does it come out of you? And to have the arrogance to tell you how it should come out, I hate that. So my rule is, you know, don't let what I tell you interfere with your intuitions. I'm not supposed to do that. I don't know what you can dream and accomplish. My goal is to try and liberate you, to try and lift you up so that you can have the courage to take on these unique and tiny, some ephemeral sometimes ideas. A nuance can be the beginning of a story or a script or an idea for a film. And if you're not encouraged to pursue those because they didn't fit somebody's dogmatic perspective who's never done it. And I went to a screenwriting conference, and a guy got up before me and said, you know, ask those people who've written the books how many of them got credits. Because if they haven't got credits, don't listen to it. And I thought, well, that's an interesting perspective. More than anything, we grow and we learn, and the more we are able to follow our true nature, then it doesn't, money isn't so much an issue as what is the feeling of being completed as a human being. And I say to people, don't defeat yourself, judge yourself from your deathbed. You know, what is success? We kind of put rules on ourselves. Oh, I should be this by now, or I should be, you know, doing this equivalent to that. And I've seen a career now, which is, I've been at it a long time, which is great. And I see these waves. I'm in a success, go in the pit, back in the success, go in the pit. But I've seen that if you just stay working long enough, you keep this consistent growth and it keeps coming back. And if you don't care about what you're, because you're not doing what you personally makes you feel emotionally richer or a better person for sharing your gifts with the community, because you have a perspective that you want to talk about, if you're not doing that, then you're wasting part of the gift of life. And so that's what that book is trying to do, is to not dominate, but to encourage. And it's written from the heart, and it's written after one of my ex-assistants had taken me to lunch and said, you have to write a book because you talk about creativity in ways I've never heard anybody else talk about it. But you're out of your mind. I'm not writing a book. That's overwhelming. I can barely write a screenplay, let alone a book. But I was offered to teach at USC Film School because my partner John had gone there. They'd offered him tenure. And I decided, well, if I'm ever going to organize my thoughts, I will do this, but I'm only going to write one chapter because I'm too scared to write any more than that. And I gave that chapter to the 28 MFA students at USC, which is called the Harvard of Film Schools. And I said, I want you to mark my paper. And it was the first chapter on passion. And I figured if they didn't get that, they weren't going to get me. And luckily, many of them responded and I got feedback. And then I wrote my next chapter. And it was written out of like, what fits these people? What makes them stronger? What can I say that contribute some sense of shortening making the process easier and simpler, because it can seem overwhelming when sometimes some of the tricks that we learned to make things easier had really paid off. So that was my hope. And the other thing that I ended up, which I also shared with Terry, and which is I ended up writing a very short a mini book called A Creative Person's Success Manual, which its goal was originally to write a letter to my son, who had sent me an email on a Sunday night bemoaning being in the film business and having the writer's blues. And I thought, oh my God, my responsibility is to write him a letter that makes it all make sense. And so I did. I gave myself till 6 the next day to write a letter to him that put in words some of the things that why it's worth feeling this passionate problem and strange world experience that we have. And then I couldn't stop writing for 4 or 5 days and literally forced my publishers to give it away. And so if you go on my website, which is writingthealligator.com, you can also download that book, but they also have a copy of it if someone wants to get it, the PDF from, and I'm happy to give it away. You know, I'm not interested in trying to make money off people. I'm interested in, like Norman did for me, trying to inspire and who knows what you might become or what you could achieve. And in the world that right now with being able to make things and put them up on YouTube and make money off them, you know, the rules are all off. You could become billionaires from some crazy idea, and you know it runs off, and you know it's wild. It's wonderful. So who knows?
I see Kathy's posted PDF of your book. Yeah, so I think right now, why don't we see if there's any questions out there? Anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michael. Hi, how are you? I've been to your house. I didn't meet you there once. I was pitching to one of your assistants. This is about like 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
My question is just about with Robin Hood. When you first wrote it, I was just wondering when it was finished. Like, how long did it take you before it was?
Well, it went in layers. You know, some scripts have taken me years to write. Other scripts have gone very quickly, so there isn't a parameter. Robin Hood, I wrote my first draft in 3 weeks. I didn't format it. I just wrote kind of what I call it's a script thing, you know, which is if you take time to start formatting, you don't keep the flow going. And then I left it for John and my assistant because I had to go write a horror movie because our company needed money. And so then John went through it and formatted it and added some wonderful character elements and things. And then I came back and did a polish on top of that. And that whole process probably took 4 months, which is very quick. I also wrote Moll Flanders, which was a film I ended up getting made with Robin Wright and Morgan Freeman in a 5-week passion frenzy while I was doing my own work at the office and keeping it secret from my partners, because I had this intuition for 2 years after Robin Hood I was going to write a woman's story. It's historical, and it was gigantically emotional for me, and I didn't know what it was. And then when I started actually writing, I was scared that if I told my partners I'm writing this historical female, that they would try and laugh me out of it, because they had on occasions trying to help me, not waste my time, try to talk me out of passion scripts. And so I wrote it in secret. And that one came out literally in, very much close to the final draft in one run, which is what you always hope for. No fucking rewrites. Oh my God, thank you. Because who wants to rewrite? But actually making mistakes and rewriting is normal, and you have to accept it. So I think the key is any way to the coast is my slogan. If you're American, I say your first draft is Lewis and Clark. Just get it out of you. Go on the adventure. Find out where you're going. You can't criticize someplace you've never been for how you get there. And so if you write just purely to explore and don't put all these dogmas on you, then you get to the coast, you can take a breather, celebrate. It's vital. We never stop to celebrate. We're such self-critics. Most people that have ambition are ambitious because they criticize themselves, not because they're saying how great they are. And what we need to encourage ourselves to reinforce these goals, to go through these pains of discovery and exploration. So when you finish your first draft of anything, I always say, take some time, print it and smell it. You know, I mean, it's like, it's an achievement. And then once you've written something, you can look at it and get a sense of what the journey was and what was important. And you can look at it much more clearly. And I say, then you can put the freeway through and you can put up signs to make sure the audience follows you. But getting that first draft out is an achievement and needs to be made as simple as possible with as much permission to make errors and make choices that you can fix later on and not, sit and complain it's not perfect yet. So is that helpful, Michael, or is that?
No, absolutely. I'd always prefer to get things done in the first draft for anything I've ever written, for sure. Yeah, because sometimes you can make yourself crazy in terms of trying to figure out because there's 10,000 different ways you can take your story.
Yeah.
So you start it this way, and there's 10,000 routes you can take, and sometimes you just have to decide this is the way
I'm going through that right now. I've been asked to possibly revive a TV series of mine, and I have spaghetti, just notes and notes and notes, and I'm trying to get through it. And what happens is that suddenly you'll get stalled. And if you just give up all the thoughts about what you're supposed to do, but just let it come out of you, there is no wrong way to write a story. Every one of us is a natural storyteller. And you just forgive yourself for not writing all those stories. You write the one that comes out of you. And that's the one that gets to exist. And the audience doesn't know all those other pathways, the might have beens. They only see the one. And most likely, organically, will write a really good story. I just think human beings are designed to do story.
Yes, I've always thought that story is very just intrinsically human. It's like people write books about the way it's structured and the format of the structure, but there's something very like it's very like ingrained into what it means to be human. I've always thought
there's a guy I met, and I pursued him because I was just fascinated. He was doing research on oxytocin. This guy was Paul Zak, to Dr. Paul Zak. And he was doing tests with short films that had 3-act structures and films that didn't have 3-act structures, and taking blood samples before and after showing the films. And he found that films with a 3-act structure, people had a large response, their oxytocin and cortisol levels. And people that watched a movie with no 3-act structure, nothing changed in their blood. And so you go, it's freaking biological. And I believe the 3-act structure is tied to dreams. It's that dreams are essentially a similar purpose. We watch stories to improve our status, to learn from the character's struggles, and to change our own inner journey, using our mirror neurons to empathize with the characters. And as a group living animal, that what Marshall McLuhan had pointed out about an audience being in a trance state, moving their faces with the characters on the screen, has been discovered to be that we're hardwired to our pain centers. And when we watch others, we microscopically emulate their physical features of their face, which feeds us their emotions. And then we have an empathy system. And it's designed so that we can get along with each other in groups, which is necessary for survival. But that then comes out on a screen. And if you don't get that emulation, we call it bad acting. We're not feeling it. And the reason we're responding to these things is that we're learning strategies from the characters' behaviors that can improve our status in our own lives, which is why it's a valuable thing to do. And if all that's going on, my thing is just surrender to writing. Trust your body is going to do it.
Excellent. Anybody else have any questions? Everybody's being hesitant. By all means, you're welcome. Okay, Pen, maybe you could, you mentioned a TV series. Pen and his company revived 2 television series that were very successful. One was The Outer Limits, and one was the Twilight Zone, right?
Yep.
And what was involved? What drove you to want to do that? And what was involved in getting it to happen, getting it on the air?
Wow, big questions. One of the things about the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits is they're both anthology series. So in a sense, they're like little features. I loved reading science fiction when I was a kid. I loved both those series. I remember them both growing up in England. And I was asked to put the Outer Limits back together again for Warner Brothers, so, sorry, for MGM. And I phoned a friend of mine, Frank Darabont, and I said, they want me to put characters in and make it like Friday the 13th, which they brought ongoing characters, or, you know, and he said, don't do that. You're, you know, that this is hallowed ground. And so I decided to write a passionate defense of the anthology, and wrote a 4 or 5 page document with lots of ideas for possible shows, and turned Showtime and MGM around into doing it as an anthology series. And I was one of the team. I was the head of the team, but ostensibly I wanted to go make my own features, and my goal was get this series off the ground, and then I could go make Moll Flanders, which did happen. And my team put it together after I got the whole thing going. And strangely, it was a George R. R. Martin story, which was our first pilot. So we were prescient, I guess. And then with the Twilight Zone, I had thought, well, I'd like to do my own anthology series because I had all these stories I wanted to tell. And I realized that I'd written a presentation that it's so hard that I wasn't going to be able to pull it off. But I thought, well, if I just take the words of my story idea off and do a couple of tweaks, it becomes a really good presentation for the Twilight Zone, which I had discovered that CBS owned. And I was coming up to the 40th anniversary of the Twilight Zone. And so I approached Les Moonves, who I knew because my kids went to school at the same place, and he'd worked with us on something else. And Les said, oh, that's a pretty good idea. Well, let's do that. And I was in the room pitching the pilot when I heard come through literally in the room that he changed his mind. So I go, all right. And then I thought, well, I'll take him on. I'll see. So I said to him, you know, what's the problem with the Twilight? He said, it's an anthology series. Anthologies don't work. And I said to him, well, you have 2 anthologies on your network which have been #1. I said, you got Unsolved Mysteries and you got 60 Minutes. Both of them have one host every week and different stories. It's not the same thing. So I got shot down. And then we had a collection of our best special effects put together in a demo reel that we've been able to achieve on a TV budget, and it looked awful good. And I had someone put the Twilight Zone music on it and showed it to Les's assistant. Said, "Would you show this to Les? You know, show him what we can do. Why it could be so cool." And the assistant looks at it and says, "Really cool." Gives to Les, and we get, "Absolutely no, not going to happen. Stop bugging us." And then I hear, like 2 or 3 months later, that Les has been put in charge of the UPN network as well as CBS, which had Star Trek on it. And I go, oh God, listen, I mean, Twilight Zone, Star Trek, they should be companion pieces. And we've been approached to try and create a companion piece to go with Star Trek because they weren't blending their evening. It sort of stood out, and they weren't, you know, science fiction and then off to some other project, didn't hold the same audience. So I went to John and I said, "John, would you like to talk to Les about the possibility of Star Trek being with?" "No way, that's your idea. You have to do that." I go, "I can't do that. I'm so scared now." And it's what we call a framing device, which is what we're looking for as a salesperson, is the thing that you can say that makes you feel confident in talking to the person you need to sell to. Because selling is overcoming your own fears as much as overcoming someone else's. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't face him. And I thought, he's just going to hate me. He's going to scream at me. And then I got this intuition and I wrote him a letter. The letter pretty much said, "Dear Les, so help me. I promise I will never mention the words Twilight Zone to you ever again after this. How about making it a companion piece to Star Trek?" I was in his office the next day. He gave me 10 days to do anything I wanted. A 10-minute presentation, a treatment, whatever. I wrote a 1-hour pilot. I had no idea I could write a 1-hour pilot in 10 days, but it's good to know that under pressure what you can do when you cut out all those choices, Michael, when you just got no fucking way, but there's the door, you got to go through it, you know. And I sort of thought, and I have an or for some TV writers that could just, because my brain is too wobbly to write that simply all the time. And we were shooting the pilot within 40 days. Now, that makes me seem smart, I got to tell you all the scripts that haven't got made, all the pitches that didn't make that get to the goal, because scripts are like sperm in LA. They're everywhere. Everybody's got one, and we're all looking for the egg of production. And so I'm not better than anybody else. I just have been luckier. Sometimes they say luck comes to the prepared, and that might be the case. But I've got as many scripts that I feel badly that I haven't made. And Guillermo del Toro said the other day that he spent 14 and a half years of his life writing movies that will never get made. And in a way, if you realize that these are the norms, that we chose to be in this game, if you realize that you've made a choice to be doing something that is unique and special to human beings, and it isn't easy. And I, in order to try and understand it, I love what I do. I love the magic of it. I just got a new big screen TV. I'm there watching the OLED, that are just looking at the textures on the faces and being excited. And what I've come to try and an analogy of what this is that we do. And I realize it's like having a passion for a sport. Some people just can't wait to play golf. Well, unfortunately, the sport that I think is nearest to filmmaking is American football. You're going to get hit. It's inevitable. They're going to strip the ball. You have to put a team together because you can't make a movie without other people. And some of those people aren't necessarily going to be the people you would normally want to be this close to. But if it's your dream to play the game, it's worth it. And so it's an odd thing, but we're a special part of humanity that wants to do these things, wants to use ourselves, and wants to speak through our skills and our voice. And that's why you should do things you care about, because it's worth it to get hit.
That's terrific. In writing The Alligator, but also in other comments, you've often said, "Oh, before I go on, any other questions from anyone?"
There's a note down here that says, "Do I think Hollywood has original ideas, or is it starting to be lackluster?"
Oh,
and
right.
the answer to that is, there were some anthropologists at Cambridge who studied what the values were of human beings prior to language, prior to religions, and what were the common things that every human being on the earth shares. And there are certain, like they say, there's only 7 plots, but there are certain basic things that human beings do or value. And those plots, and they're like, don't steal, they're trust thy neighbor, not to let you down, marry the person that you value. It's like these basic forms are never going away. Great movies are based on biological need. They're not new stories. They're new interpretations of the things that touch us, whether it's Robin Hood, which is a group of men coming together. It could be 7 Dwarfs. It could be any Magnificent Seven, which we also turned into a TV series. And that's a group of underlings cluster against an evil. You've got love stories, which are people that fall in love through a period of testing to make sure that if you do end up having an egg turn into a child together, that they'll stick together. That's what the purpose of that story is. We have not being eaten stories, which is Jurassic, Jaws, and Alien, which are avoidance of being pursued and consumed. So these stories just keep coming back. So you can create your own, whether it's a gorilla or a Goliath or it's a goblin, you can tell that story over and over because it's about things that we will be queuing into as a human because they touch our very basic nature. So yes, the stories will have not run out. They will keep being interpreted. And that's who our job is. We're the next generation. We're the new myth makers. And as Joseph Campbell says, each generation needs its myths so that they can reinterpret themselves to the time they exist in. So no, that Hollywood's scared of novelty because they don't know how to sell it, which is why they love doing sequels. And why you're right now seeing all these costume epics when there used to be cowboy movies, or there used to be war movies, or there used to be, and the costume epics, the problem is most of the characters don't have purpose. They're not actually people with issues that we can relate to, vulnerabilities. We can't learn from them when they're already highly successful. There's nothing to gain from them. And so the only thing they can do is make the devastations more spectacular, which is why they cost so much. But a movie with two people in it that are engaged in something that's passionately emotional or purposeful can be just as potent as any $200 million movie. And that often happens and proves itself.
Yeah. Lisa followed up her question with, "Do you think too many are being copied?" And that is a fact. In something is successful, you copy it until the copies just fall flat and don't go anywhere. Um, it's it's pretty hard when you're copying something to bring that element of passion into it. Wouldn't you agree, Pen?
Well, if you're making something that isn't true to your nature, I wrote several horror movies, and one of them, I was financially, I was the cash cow for the company. If we needed something, I'd go pitch it, sell it, and bring some money in so that we could all survive till we could get something that we wanted done. And I described it as plucking the words out of my flesh, that it was so hard writing against my nature. With the opposite with Moll Flanders, when it was like being seduced into a dream and just channeling voices out of the blue and watching all these pieces, jigsaw puzzle pieces of story flow around and fit in. The difference was remarkable. And that's what, again, why I keep saying, write to the most dangerous place that you can write in terms of your belief that you can sell it or support it, but write to your heart, write to your subconscious, write to your instincts, because that has veracity and people can feel it. And nothing is lost when you write that way. You know, if we end up spending time writing a lot of things that don't get made, each one of them reinforces, and the ideas will come back in other story forms. Whereas if you write against your nature and you're writing something that's trying to clone what was a success, it's already a dull repetition. And you're also not necessarily using your true skills. You're writing maybe against your skills, and you may not succeed just because when problems come up, you don't fight for it. Why would you fight for something you didn't like in the first place? It's not healthy. Another observation, when we first came to Hollywood, and because we were hanging out with Stallone, we got access to the executives in Universal, and we took the product testing people to lunch and asked them what works, because that seemed like a basic question. And we were trying to be practical and simple. And they said, new, interesting, and different, but our people don't know how to sell it. Novelty is important for an audience. If you put the same movie on every week, people don't go back every week and go, wow, I want to see that. In rare cases they do. They're bored. So you need novelty. Why do we wrap Christmas gifts? You know, it's the excitement of discovery. It's the same sort of thing with a movie. Even though it's a familiar story, they want the wrapping of the novelty, the excitement of discovery. And you're the person that supplies that.
Great. I'm thinking we're now at 11 o'clock your time, 3 o'clock our time. I'm thinking it's time for us to wrap this up. So I surely do appreciate it, Pen. Appreciate you taking the time. And before we go, are there any questions from anyone?
There's one more, Terry, in the chat from Tracy.
Oh, yes. Can you see it, Pen, the question?
Yeah. Boy, it's a great question. Because I'm going through that right now. You know, there's a free chapter from my book on my website called Writing the Alligator, which is, I think it's titled Yes, But Can I Write, which sort of covers that. And it says there's no wrong way to do it, whether you put headphones on and go up to the attic and you write notes, or whether, you know, but the simplest thing is collecting thoughts. Watching another person's movie sometimes is a great way to open up your floodgates for creating ideas and letting things out of you, that you aren't copying what's on the screen, but being in that receptive state means that you're bypassing some of your critic systems, things that say, oh, this is a waste of time. And ideas will pop out of you when you're watching other movies. That's not necessarily from that movie, but just to applying to your movie. But the most unusual one is take a shower. There is a genuine proof that taking a shower when you want to create something dislocates some of the critic systems in your body and allows you to actually come up with ideas that you wouldn't normally be able to get to. And I keep a waterproof pen and a waterproof notebook in the shower, because I know if I don't write them down right when they freaking happen, they disappear and they're gone. So the important way to structure something is any way that works for you. That sounds like a bullshit thing, but it's not. Frequently, I know that I start writing when I get an idea that's so empowering and emotional that I have to pursue it. Frequently, my endings are very emotional reconciliations of the characters coming together. And then I have the tool that I need to start writing and putting pieces together. I don't necessarily write linearly. I write with pieces that I've got. We call them islands of sanity. You're taught to write from the beginning to the end, and that's bullshit. Sometimes you get a scene and you get another scene, and then you say, what could go between here? And then you jump to the beginning because you suddenly realize what the beginning should be. What works is the answer. How do you put it together? Not what way are you supposed to do it, because then you're beating yourself.
That idea of grabbing an idea when it happens, boy, because they go. That's
and they
so.
seem so secure in your head at the moment. They're sneaky buggers.
Yeah, I find that with writing music, it's just as I'm waking up, whoop, there it is, and I know I gotta grab it.
That's what I mean by being an antenna. We're antennas. These things. They come in us, and then we radiate them out again.
Yeah, that's a great image. Okay, well, we got 2 people have thanked us. You're very welcome. I hope
Yes,
you've gotten something out of it. I know I have. Pen has been very generous over the years talking with my students, and it's been quite a long time we've known each other. Eh?
Yeah, I'm still hanging in.
That's remarkable.
I just want to say to your guys, I love that there's a film co-op there. I think that networking and sharing the stress of making films, the sport that we've chosen, is fantastic. I think that any one of us can become successful to our own choices, and I salute you all for putting this time and energy in. It means that we're fellow dreamers. We're all in the same tribe, and I try to respond to specific questions on Facebook. I try not, when someone says, do you want to read my script? I say, no, please, no. But if there's a certain style or a specific question, I'll try and make myself available and, be a supporter.
Thank you, Pen, so much. And thank you, Terry. This was really inspiring. And thank you everyone for coming. And I guess we'll have to sign off now. But Pen, I hope we get to talk to you again.
That would be a pleasure.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Say goodbye to Pen.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right.